Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Brad Meltzer, who's here to share with us his new book, The JFK Conspiracy, The Secret Plot to Kill Kennedy and Why It Failed. Brad Meltzer is an extraordinary individual whom I deeply admire. His work is undeniably impactful, but it's his values that truly set the standard for all of us. Most of you know Brad. He's the Emmy-nominated #1 New York Times best-selling author of The Lightning Rod, The Escape Artist, and 11 other best-selling thrillers with more than 11 million copies sold. He also writes nonfiction books like The Nazi Conspiracy, about a secret plot to kill FDR, Stalin, and Winston Churchill at the height of World War II, and The Ordinary People Change the World kids book series, which inspired the PBS Kids TV show Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum. He's also the host of Brad Meltzer's Lost History and Brad Meltzer's Decoded on the History Channel, and is responsible for finding the missing 9/11 flag that the firefighters raised at Ground Zero, making national news on the 15th anniversary of 9/11. So welcome to the show, Brad Meltzer.
I appreciate it. It's so good to be back.
Oh my goodness, it's always such an honor to spend time with you, and I'm always so intrigued by what you dig up in history. So what even drew you to this?
As always, it was just an incredible historical story that I never heard. And we all know the story of JFK when he's killed in 1963. It's the most famous, arguably most famous murder in American history. And what people don't realize is that the beginning of JFK's administration, just after he's elected, right before inauguration, there's another attempt to kill him. And there was a postal worker named Richard Pavlik who hates JFK, wants him dead, follows JFK down to Washington, D.C., then checks him out in Massachusetts, then checks him out again further south in Florida at his compound in Palm Beach, and he realizes Florida has the worst security. So he starts studying. He sees that every Sunday at 10 a.m., JFK leaves his house at 9:50, goes to the 10 a.m. church service at the local church. And so he fills his car, this is all true, full of 10 sticks of dynamite. He sets up a little button to set it off. At 9:50 on a Sunday morning, sure enough, JFK comes out with the Secret Service to go to the church service. And Richard Pavlik in his car full of dynamite is about 20, 30 yards away. He just has to hit the gas. The car will hit JFK. He will hit the button, and truly, Marianne, boom, will go the dynamite. And I won't tell you what saves his life on that morning, but I just ruined chapter 1 of the JFK Conspiracy. But it's one of the most amazing lost moments in history.
Well, you never ruin anything when we talk, because when I've read your books, it really pulls the reader in. And that's one of the things I so appreciate about your writing style. Why do you think that this event isn't so widely known?
The reason, and it's funny, that was my first question. Like, how do I not know this story? And the reason is it was on the front page of the local paper in Florida when it happened, but it used to back then take a full day to make the front page of, whether it's in Massachusetts or DC or New York or California or anywhere else. The reason you don't know the story is on that day, 2 planes crashed above New York City, and everyone on both planes died except for one child. There was a sole survivor. And when that happened, the entire country became obsessed with this kid, this one survivor of this horrific airplane crash. And that became the front page story of every newspaper in America. And the story about JFK's alleged assassination became a footnote that nobody cared about until we said, wait a minute, that's an incredible story. We should tell it.
Oh my gosh, that it's interesting. And it's when you look back and seeing how news cycles and media is dispersed to the public, it's so different than what it is today.
Well, right. I mean, and especially now, not only do we have newspapers, that can move in an instant, but you have, whether it's Threads or Blue Sky or anything else, or Facebook or Instagram, everyone can report the news now. Everybody has turned into Walter Cronkite. We can all say what the news is, and we can all say what our reality is. But back then, you had fewer gatekeepers, and the story became this, and that was the story. And the truth is, JFK himself didn't take it seriously because he's like, oh, no one would ever try to kill me. He's the greatest guy in the world. Why would And that hadn't happened in so long that now we know it as a modern fear. But don't forget, it hadn't been, decades since anyone had taken killed a president. So if JFK doesn't think much of it, why should anyone else?
Yeah, for sure. My goodness. How do you think that this assassination attempt influenced the Secret Service's approach to presidential security moving forward?
It's interesting. I've spoken to the Secret Service about it. So one thing they realized, the head of the Secret Service at the time said this was, without question, the number one closest a president has ever come to dying as far as he knew it. That's how serious it was at the time. What the Secret Service, who I've spoken to, of course, they realized they had to increase security. Of course, they realized they had to amp things up. But 3 years later, they realized it still wasn't enough. But what the Secret Service taught me is that when you look at presidential assassins and you look at them through history, there are two types. There are hunters and there are howlers. And a hunter is very different than a howler. A howler makes a lot of noise, says, I'm going to kill this guy or I'm coming after you. And they make a lot of noise and threats, but they rarely do anything. But a hunter is very different. A hunter makes almost no noise. And the hunters are the ones who you don't see coming. And those are the ones who pull the trigger. And if you look at the 4 people who have successfully killed a president, even the ones that went after Trump, even the ones they just caught, they all fit that same mold. They're not howlers. They're quiet hunters.
Okay, that just gave me goosebumps. That's pretty creepy. So it's good to know this, though, because I think, especially with what we've seen moving forward, that I think this is a question that we have to address as a nation.
It really, here's the thing we really need to address. The reason that Josh mentioned I wrote this book together is it's always interesting for me to come on and say, I found this great story and look at this and you didn't know this about JFK. But why is it important today? What does it say about us now? And the reason it's important today is for this simple reason. And that is in 1960, it was JFK was facing off against Richard Nixon. Each side, it was the closest election in modern history, won by a sliver. Each side hated the other side. Whatever side you were on, you thought the other side were complete, utter, terrible morons. Does that sound familiar to you? It's exactly where we are now. And when you drum up so much venom toward the other side, whatever side you're on, when you drum up so much hate and venom, you cannot be surprised when someone gets activated. When you see someone activated and they come after you because you drummed up venom or because someone else drummed up venom, whatever the answer is, people get, they listen. They're listening to those loud microphones. And I will not be surprised if you see this happen again soon, because we're in that situation again where you're just watching so much venom in the air and there are consequences to that.
In some ways, it kind of feels like history is repeating itself a little bit there,
There's a great quote that's attributed to Mark Twain, although he never said it. It says, history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And that's what it feels like right now, right? It just sure does rhyme.
I know you do so much extraordinary research for your books. Is there a little nugget you could share with us that doesn't give everything away? Because we don't want to do spoilers here.
Yeah, no, listen, I think the thing that's going to surprise people the most about this book is they're going to go in thinking, oh, here's the story of JFK. And it is, of course, you'll see JFK. But what you're going to see, the real star of the book, is Jackie Kennedy. And Jackie Kennedy, when you read the JFK Conspiracy, I kept asking, where does Camelot come from? Where did they get the word Camelot? Everyone knows the word Camelot's associated with the Kennedys, but when did it enter? Was it in the first year when they were in office, right after they were elected? It actually doesn't enter the lexicon for America until after he's actually dead. And this is one part of the end of the book that we talk about. And it ends because he gets killed, and Jackie Kennedy basically is the only person who's obviously the firsthand account that everyone wants to interview. And Life magazine's doing this big story. It's the biggest magazine at the time that everyone's reading. And they say, we need to get Jackie Kennedy interviewed. And she won't grant an interview. And eventually she says, I'm granting one interview to Life magazine, tells the reporter that, you're going to come to my house at night. I'm going to give you the exclusive interview to one person, my firsthand account. And the reporter, sure enough, comes on this night. And Jackie Kennedy tells him the whole story of what happened, what she saw. But she also says that when they were in the White House back during those good days, even when his back was hurt and JFK couldn't, was struggling, he would always love and calm down by listening to this one record that they used to play over and over about a place called Camelot. And I can tell you that Jackie Kennedy used to be a reporter herself. That's where she started her career. So she used to be part of the press. She was then hounded by the press. She was crucified by the press. The press was obsessed with her, but she was also a master of the press. And the reason why we to this day associate Camelot with the Kennedys is not because of JFK, but it's because Jackie put it there very consciously. She knew exactly what she was doing. And when you see the JFK conspiracy, you're going to see Jackie like you've never seen her before. You're going to see that here's this family that, he has the perfect life and the perfect wife and the perfect tan and the perfect hair and perfect family. Camelot. But it's anything but. And you'll see the affairs and you'll see what, JFK's best friend, one of his best friends goes up to Jackie and says, you know what? He loves women, basically saying he's not going to stop cheating on you. Tells her that right after they're engaged. And you're going to see this woman who's trying to manage this guy who everyone thinks is perfect in every way. And this marriage is supposed to be perfect in every way. But behind the scenes, it is anything but Camelot. And I think that's what people are going to love the most about this book, is seeing what Jackie does behind the scenes, because it's going to blow your mind.
It's almost like he had his own PR agent with him every step of the way.
And not only that, but what she's so amazing about is people love her. They're obsessed with her style. They're obsessed with what she wears. They're obsessed with how she speaks. And she doesn't want any part of it. Most people who are famous, they want to be famous. She didn't want any of it, which makes her only more alluring to us. And there's this wonderful moment in the book where, you see her with her Secret Service agent who they assigned to her. And when he gets assigned to her, he thinks, oh my gosh, I got the worst assignment. I wanted to be in the White House with the president. I got the first lady. I'm going to go to tea parties now. This is going to be terrible. And she starts, when they meet together, they go for a walk together, because Jackie loved to go on walks every day. And in the beginning, he just walks behind her, doesn't say a word to her. They picked him because he had kids that were young, just like hers. And sure enough, they slowly start walking together. They start talking about their kids. They start talking about it, and he becomes her most fervent protector. And this relationship and what you see, he has to watch her go through. We have a firsthand account from him in the book. As I said, it's just going to break your heart and blow your mind, because what Jackie's going through in that White House when she gets there, it is not a normal life at that moment. And in fact, she's so popular that at one point JFK goes abroad and he introduced himself. He says, "My name is John Kennedy. You might know me as the husband of Jackie." That's how famous she is. The lines are coming for her, not for him.
I never knew that. There's so much in the Camelot portion too. My goodness. I mean, I never knew any of that. You have blown my mind, which your books always do. What do you hope readers take away from your book?
I always think to myself, whatever I write, there's a saying that says a book isn't written until the reader reads it. And every time I write a book, people take away something a little different. But for this one, for the JFK Conspiracy, you got to ask yourself, right? Is JFK a horrible person who's reckless and cheats on his wife? Or is he someone who gave us, especially at a moment when we needed it, a great deal of hope, a great deal of what the future could be, a great deal of our own potential, takes us to the moon, thanks to him. So is he a good person? Is he a bad person? Or is he, like all of us, a little bit of both? And what I want you to take away when you read this is, obviously it's at a different level, but just how complicated we all are, how complicated the presidency is, and to stop making saints and sinners of those who get elected. It's incredible how quickly we turn their lives into perfection, depending on how you see them. And obviously that's anything but the truth so often.
I mean, my goodness, we're all just trying to do the best we can.
That's the hope. That is the hope. But it's, it's such a large microscope there. And when you go to, one of the scenes that I love the most in the book is in the grand tradition, the incoming president goes to visit the outgoing president. The incoming first lady goes to visit the outgoing first lady. And the Eisenhower JFK visit we mention in the book, but the far more fascinating one is when Mrs. Eisenhower welcomes Jackie Kennedy for the very first time to the White House. I won't ruin this scene, but Jackie's just hemorrhaged. She's given birth. She's gone for an emergency surgery. She has the christening of her son, which is taking place with all these cameras around her, hardly the private affair she wants, and it happens in the hospital. They take her out of the hospital just like hours before it happens. And then because they're leaving for Palm Beach, she's got to race to the White House and do this. She needs a wheelchair. And I won't ruin what happens, but she doesn't get it. And it's going to break your heart when you see why. And you see this visit that Jackie Kennedy has to make to the White House. It's really, these behind the scenes moments just get lost to history. And we were lucky enough to find them. And I think that's what gives the JFK conspiracy its heart, is these moments with Jackie that are so human.
Well, if anyone can find just heartfelt, intriguing nuggets of history, it's you, Brad. I mean, I hats off to you with every book that you write. Where can our readers and listeners connect with you and learn more about the JFK conspiracy?
Yeah, you can go find us at bradmeltzer.com. You can always learn more about me. But if you want to buy the book, it's every bookstore, your independent bookstore. Go to Amazon. I love the fact that people can buy this book as presents. And, so many people tell me, oh, my relative loves history. This is the perfect book for anyone who loves the Kennedy history, whether it's for yourself or Jackie.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thanks, Marianne. And thanks for looking out for us in every genre, from the kids' books to the thrillers to the real history like this. I appreciate it.
Make sure to pick up your copy of the JFK Conspiracy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, it's probably because it's sold out, but just ask for them to order it. Make sure to visit Brad's website at bradmeltzer.com, be part of his community, and learn more about the other great books he's written. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.